Hey, I'm Agent Espo.
And I'm Mitch.
Thanks for joining us and welcome to the Debrief podcast where we'll discuss games from our childhood.
Games such as COD, Battlefield, Medal of Honor, and even some older gems you might remember.
We'll discuss how these games have impacted us as gun owners.
And how they continue to impact and influence us.
So sit back and enjoy. So, episode 1, how you feeling? You excited?
I'm very, very excited. This is a topic that I can talk about all day.
As can
just
I.
Video games and guns, just the two best things combined.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How they've kind of influenced us is kind of the whole reason why we started this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we'll kind of introduce ourselves and then we'll just jump right in. So my name is Agent Espo and I have a small YouTube channel where I make gun videos and try to entertain the masses. I'm moderately successful at it, so not very much so, but hey, we're out here, we're having fun and whatnot. So I thought, hey, why not start a podcast? I want to talk a little bit more in detail about like some of those games and just maybe even firearm stuff, community stuff in general. I'm just kind of interested in talking about. And we got the expert here, my co-host. His name is Mitch. He's kind of like, he's a bigger gamer than I am. Do you want to tell the people a little bit about your expertise?
Yeah, of course. Like as you said, my name's Mitch. I am Espo's younger brother. There's a decent little gap there, but we're still grew up playing those games, so it helped grow that bond. You know what I mean? But no, you had me playing games from pretty much the womb. For honest, as soon as I could speak, I was playing games.
That's right.
Out here, topping the leaderboards as an 8-year-old in Battlefield. I mean, honestly, I don't remember if I was doing that good, but still.
You got into, what was it, the original Black Ops. So that came out in 2010, mm-hmm. So you would have been 5 years old, jumping on Black Ops 1.
Mm-hmm. Playing the zombies, just pooping my pants. It was great. It was a great time.
What was one of the first games that you played that, like a shooter that you really remember that stuck with you?
I mean, the obvious answer that I think most people will say is just Call of Duty.
Yeah.
That's such a core memory, I think, in so many people's just lives. If they played video games like that, Call of Duty is just the staple.
Yeah.
I mean, you look back at Finest Hour, Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 3.
Yep.
Granted, those might not have been like the games that everybody is looking back on as like, oh, these are amazing. But to me, when I was little, those games stuck out to me because it was that kind of mix of history with World War II. I thought World War II was kind of cool, so there was that draw. And then just the old Call of Duty games were so solid.
Yeah.
Especially for a little kid.
I remember it was a little bit before your time, but I had played. Did you play the Medal of Honor games?
I did. I played them a little bit, but I never really stuck to them as much as I did with Call of Duty.
Right. Medal of Honor Frontline and Rising Storm was like a huge. I played those early on. That was like my first experience with like what is D-Day. I had no idea about. I hadn't even seen Saving Private Ryan at the time, and I remember playing like the first mission in Medal of Honor Frontline, like what's going on, and then like just like playing it over and over again. I just always remember. I like only played like the first few missions for like the longest time, and I would always like play that first mission again. But it was just little games like that, and of course the Call of Duties, like you said, Finest Hour, Call of Duty 2, and Big Red 1. It was it was a part of our childhood that's kind of. Those games stick with you forever. And I genuinely think that those games were really well made for the time. Like graphically, yeah, they're a little
Definitely.
bit. The graphics aren't as good, but as far as gameplay goes, especially at the time, I think they were like, that's the reason Call of Duty became so successful because they were they took the Medal of Honor formula and pretty much perfected it, essentially.
It was very easy to just pick it up and play it. You didn't need to be familiar with games at all. It was just, oh, this is cool, shoot 'em up game. I'm gonna grab that, play it, and then it evolved into like Call of Duty 4. Modern Warfare comes out, and that takes it from this kind of historic timepiece game to now like, okay, now it's modern day. Now we're doing all this cool tactical stuff. Granted, not Modern Warfare 2019 type of tactical, but for its time, super tactical. I think it's still cool.
Yeah, no,
But
COD 4 is great. COD
yeah,
4 is awesome. Like, that was the game that made multiplayer shooters what they are today, essentially. You know,
that's
like,
where like MLG got its big
yeah,
start, I believe. I mean, all the quick scoping game
yep.
from that, and then Modern Warfare 2 just amplified that. You get the intervention, all that. Could go on, could go on.
Now, Halo
But
probably was pretty big in the multiplayer scene before Call of
was
Duty. Halo 2 and 3, because I think 3 came out
right.
a little bit before COD 4. But as far as like your military, as Call of Duty, what it is today is because of Call of Duty 4 and all the other games that are trying to clone Call of Duty's formula. Essentially, it all goes back to COD 4. You know, that custom class, the creator class, the perk system, kill streaks, all that stuff. Everybody else has pretty much now tried to copy Call of Duty and whatnot. And I mean, Call of Duty's kind of a
It,
shell
it,
of a former self. But what were we gonna say?
it paved the way.
Yeah,
It solidified Call of Duty as a big name that can just attract people because it's that easy pick up and play.
yeah. And the guns and the way that, so like for example, Call of Duty 4 had what was like the Marine Force Recon, and then it had the SAS. Like I didn't know what the SAS was at the time, and then it's like I'm playing as the SAS, and now okay, it's the British Special Forces and MP5 and the G36 and Knock the Watermelon, all that kind of stuff. Like it's just iconic, the USP and stuff. They used a lot of real names at the time during this time. They used real names for guns, and you just started to kind of pick things up by osmosis, where you're just like, oh yeah, the M4, G36, the holographic side, blah blah, whatever, and that like just kind of, even if like I wasn't into guns like that at the time, but I was into gaming and playing those games. You just start to learn about stuff, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna play airsoft now because it's like Call of Duty, and then you get older and you're like, all right, now I'm gonna buy a real gun or whatever, and then you have those fond memories when you were playing COD 4 and stuff. So I think it's just funny how the pipeline of how it goes, how we started and where we are now. It's just kind of interesting to me.
It's like it planted a seed. It's not like when we were playing it when we were younger, we thought to ourselves, "Oh, I want to have this M4."
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking of, "Oh, this is cool. Oh, this gun is really really good. Or this gun looks cool. Or the iron sights are cool." That's what stuck with me younger playing this game was, is the gun cool and is the gun good? And like subconsciously, I think all those kinds of guns with those real names just resonate in people's minds. Everyone knows what the M16 is. Everyone knows what the M9 is. Everyone knows what the M4 is. G36. I mean, people probably wouldn't even. Majority of people wouldn't even know what that gun is if it wasn't
For games.
For video games.
Yeah.
And so I think they just kind of planted a seed that later on we would stockpile with Black Ops 1's guns, the Commando. You look at Modern Warfare 2, the Intervention. Nobody would know what the Intervention is. Anyone sees that sniper that has like been in the gaming world at all knows, oh, that's the Intervention. The ACR, like,
I mean, like,
just iconic.
What's cool about some of those guns is that Call of Duty was kind of ahead of. So there was a program on the military channel back in the day. It was called Future Weapons, and there was a guy called Mac. He died actually a few years ago. I think he died of cancer, but he would always go over like the future weapons with Mac, and he had an ACR on the whatever, and it's called the ShyTac. I forget the exact name of it, but I think it's the ShyTac. I think it's the ShyTac Intervention is what it's called. I have to look that up. We'll have to fact check that. But it's a real sniper rifle. But like Infinity Ward was adding these guns to this game, and we didn't know anything about it, but we were playing. We knew what the Intervention was. We knew what the ACR was, even though they were failed programs. But it's just really cool that kind of the bridge between like reality and firearm culture to the game world and how it gets to us, the end user. What's another game that had some guns that you were like, what was a game that had impacted you today?
Mainly it was those first person shooters. The next biggest one I can think of would be Battlefield.
Yeah.
Playing that at a young age. The M16A3, the video you have in your your channel. I mean, it was a dream rifle of yours just because of that game, just
Yeah.
because of how it stood out, how good it was. And again, so many obscure guns in that game that people wouldn't know if it wasn't for that. You got the F2000. Granted, the AUG was in a number of games a little bit, but Battlefield 3, for me, it stuck out there. And just all these different variations of guns, too, that was just... It introduced it to our minds and set it in our minds, whether it was we loved using them or we hated getting killed by it. All those guns just stuck in our brains.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not even always the look, it's like how the gun performed in the game that makes it so iconic. Like the M16A3 was so effective. It was broken essentially. I mean, it was
so broken.
They waited years before they ended up fixing it. But everybody has fond memories of using that, or the AEK 971. AEK is going to be harder to clone, but people have these fond memories of these guns, and then they grow up and then they're like, I'm going to clone it. And I think we're starting to see that a lot more now in the firearms. I've seen people now cloning more, video game guns. I was talking to a guy locally here at one of the gun stores here, and he asked me what I was building because I went and bought a lower from him, and I told him I was building a commando. I can talk about it. It's fine. I already talked about it on another podcast like a month and a half ago. But I was building commando. He's like, what are you building with the lower? And I was like, I'm building a commando from Black Ops 1. He was like, oh, nice. And then one guy chimed in. He was like, yeah, I'm going to Cerakote mine so it looks like, Sally or whatever from the cover, where the Mustang and Sally. And then the other guy was like, oh, I got a Fallout New Vegas service rifle. And he's like, I'm going to get a Chiapa Rhino and clone something or other from Destiny. So that's just a random encounter that I had at the gun store. So more and more people are our generation. Well, I'm a little bit older than you. I'm like the first gen, like the first wave of Gen Z. And you're kind of like towards the last, kind of the end of it.
Towards the end of it.
But that within that age gap, people are, they're having their real rifle set up and have their EDC squared away and all this stuff. But then they're like, all right, now I'm going to do the fun stuff, and I'm going to go build that commando from Call of Duty Black Ops or the M16 from fill in the blank, or it can not even be an AR, it can be something else entirely. But it's just interesting to see how video games have made that shift to affecting us in the real world, I guess.
I think just people have a very monkey see, monkey do kind of brain, and it's just simply cool to people to see this gun that they loved in a game in real life and what it's actually doing. All those kinds of videos on YouTube that are about video game guns are so attractive to people. It draws them in because it's that mix of nostalgia, that mix of, yo, wait, I remember that. Wait, that's in real life? That's cool. People go crazy for that. People love that kind of stuff because it's very, very nostalgic.
Yeah.
It's a mix of nostalgia and just genuine interest of
people always want to know things. People want to
yes.
They want to be in the know. So they're they played a game and they're like, oh yeah, I remember this gun and that, and then see a video about it and they're like, well, what's the real life version like? I got to see what this is IRL. And people have this. I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential in that genre that I'm, that whole video game niche kind of thing. Just because it seems to be popular right now, that with the retro stuff as well. The retro stuff kind of is, I think it's kind of dying off a little bit, but video game guns, I think are going to be that's going to be the future.
It's the big thing right now.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
All the people that grew up playing those games are not old enough to recreate them. So everyone's going for it and everybody loves it.
Which can be a good and a bad thing because you can get a lot of pleb rifle builds out of that. There's people are going to start adding, gold camo to their guns and just adding a bunch of silly stuff to it where it's, everybody started off when they got their first rifle getting a cheap Amazon red dot and a bad laser, sight or a laser pointer on their gun and everything. And they were like, oh, it's just like Call of Duty. And then they mature and then they're like, okay, I'm going to get a real optic and a real light and sling and blah, blah, blah. And then now it's we're seeing people return to video game pleb build and they're like, all right, now that I know what I'm doing, I'm gonna like do it ironically and actually put all this like bad stuff on my gun that doesn't work, but it's because it's for nostalgia. So it's like the bar graph of, what I'm talking about, where it's like down here. I guess it'll be on this side, but no, it'll be like it's like a soy jack, and it's like he's like stupid, and he'll have like an opinion, and it'll say,
Yes, it's just
you know what I'm talking about. It'll be like, I like video
yeah.
game guns. And then at the top of the bell curve, it's like, no, you need a fighting rifle. And at the bottom where it's like the genius and it's like, I love video game guns. That's exactly the bell curve that we're seeing, I think.
That is the exact timeline. People make the initial mistake, grow from it, and then go back to the mistake, and almost it's like a purposeful mistake that's actually turns out pretty good.
It's like you do what you like, what your heart wants, but you're doing it in a hobby that you don't understand yet. So you're like, you don't know how to do it right. And then you learn, and then you're like, okay, now I can do it right. Does that make sense? I'm probably not even explaining it right, but
no. It does make sense. I think that the biggest point of it all is that no matter what, whether somebody starts at that making a goofy mistake, or maybe they could start at the tactical battle rifle, who knows? But in both instances, the game caused both of these two people to seek guns and to look into guns, which, I mean, that's the point of this whole discussion, right? Just how these games draw people in.
Yeah, for sure. Now that can also be a negative thing, I think, because people will see a normal AR and be like, there's a lot of people out there that think we can have full autos just off the street. You can just buy a full auto. It's just like, well, because their mind has been taken over by movies and video games and they don't know anything. So they're like, you can have a machine gun? Like, you can do that. It's like, no, you really can't. And, those people vote and those people hold some pretty stupid opinions. So it can work for and against. I think it helps more than it hurts because it introduces more people to firearms, but it can also give them an unrealistic view. So that's when they go to YouTube, and then they get hooked on YouTube, and then they start to watch creators. And if they're good creators, hopefully they, as we did, we kind of like corrected, and we're like, okay, now I know the right way to do it. And then like I said, the whole bell curve thing, right?
It all just depends on the person. Yeah. If you grow up kind of in a gun-ish culture, or at least with some interest towards it, these video games are going to amplify that and push you probably in a good direction. Yeah. If you're already anti-gun, these video games are going to look horrible to you. I mean, there's so many video game controversies that have happened just because of guns. I mean, they don't even use real gun names anymore because of so much of the talk around it. Yep. So it just, if you're already into it, or at least semi-interested, it kind of amplifies it. Or at least it's planted those seeds. So when somebody did eventually get into it, they wanted to recreate all these cool guns from their games. So it can go both ways, just depending on the person's other influences.
It amplifies what you already are, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think what was I going to say? Yeah, Modern Warfare 2019, I have a theory that game accidentally resonated too well with the gun community, and they had to go through and make Modern Warfare 2 2022 and 2023. They had to like ruin it, because Modern Warfare 2019, we always talk about nostalgia of like, oh, they don't make games like they used to. Like, gaming was way better when we were younger. I do think that is true for some franchises, but I think that there's some modern games, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, like arcade versus simulator, the way the shooters are turning into now. But Call of Duty now mostly is not really for gun people. But 2019 was an exception to that, because 2019, I mean, they had Lucas, he worked on it. He did mocap for it. They would never do that today, knowing, they didn't even know anything about him at the time. And so they would never do something like that, today. A lot of the gun names were accurate. The attention to detail was there, and it was made with heart and soul. And then when you look at 2022 and 2023, those games went over the top with their skins, and they went over the you can just look up the comparison of reload animations for 2019 and then the rest of them, and you can just see kind of a fall off. Just the aesthetic of it is different, and those games just weren't as good.
They feel like just lifeless copies trying to
Yes.
just squeeze out as much money as they can.
That's exactly what it feels like.
2019 found a thing that works, an innovation that works with their gunsmithing system, with their new kind of engine that they were using, with the, now every game has it with the slanted pistol when you're holding it,
Yep.
like just low. they they made something new that was great. We love innovation. Innovation's amazing. Effort is amazing. But then it also made them a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, they just look for the easiest route to duplicate it with minimal effort. And that's what we've seen in 104.2 and then 104.3, the remakes.
Yeah.
Which is just it's sad to see it.
Now, as I said before this, arcade versus simulator, I think that there's this new kind of subgenre within FPS games where, yeah, you have your main Call of Duty arcadey Battlefield games, but then you also have even, what was that game that came out, X Defiant? It's an arena arcade kind of thing. And then you got where a lot of my generation is playing, the older Zoomers are playing games like Ready or Not or Squad or Hell Let Loose, these kind of games. Now, these games, I don't think they have the same draw to the mass audiences the way that Call of Duty did. So now it's kind of like, which way, Western man, it's like two different paths to take. What do you think about like that relationship between arcade versus simulator games?
I think it's very easy to be involved in both of them, but also I feel like somebody who can play a simulator game can also play an arcade and be happy, but someone who's just an arcade cannot play the simulator games and be happy.
So we had technical difficulties there, but you were talking about arcade versus simulator.
I think they're both great for. The arcade is better for people who aren't more into guns because, again, it's that easy pickup. Yeah. The simulator games, though, are definitely strong in maintaining and exaggerating that kind of draw that people like to guns. Guns are expensive. Guns, you can't always get your hands on the ones that you want. If you can play a simulator that, you're seeing it and you're doing these cool tactical animations with it, or like it's jamming and you're really into that, you're like, I love this immersion. The simulator games are great for that. That's where their biggest strong point is in terms of influencing the gun community and kind of creating an environment for people that like guns to relish in, to really enjoy it. Insurgency is kind of a minor simulator game, not as intense as like Squad or whatnot. Yeah. Insurgency is more of an easier pick up and play, and I think it scratches that itch for those guys who love the kind of more grounded, immersive feel of like you're shooting, you're getting shot at that more intense feeling is a lot more attractive to
the lower time to kill
that audience. Yes, exactly.
Also, I think it's just because people are getting older and they don't want to. Well, I don't know, because those games are hard. Hell Let Loose is hard. With a low time to kill, Insurgency can be challenging. So I don't know, but like some of the PvE stuff, it makes me wonder if like some of the guys are just getting old and they're like, I only play these simulator games now because they can't compete with like some of the crazy keyboard movement people are doing on like Fortnite and stuff like that. That they those kind of skills that people have. We just gotten old and we don't play those anymore. But I think you're right. I think you told me yesterday. You said that the simulator games are games for people that are already into guns, and those arcade games are for people that aren't. And I think that was a really good point that you made. I don't think that you can really draw non-gun people into like some of these. That's not totally true.
I mean, you also gotta look at. I mean, this could dive into a whole nother topic, but just on the surface level of it, what do you think about?
We faced some technical difficulties, but we're back. Now, what did you want to ask?
So, I wanted to ask what you thought about, because you mentioned that Call of Duty might not be as big as it was, or at least it's not getting that same draw that it used to.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think about the impact of streaming Call of Duty? Because I mean, you got Warzone, which was massive, still pretty big. You know, those streamers still very, very popular. You think that has kept it sort of alive?
Yeah, I think to a degree, but a lot of the people, they know that like the cast off 7.62 is an AK, or that
Mm.
the Lockman sub is an MP5. Like there's a lot of, we're in the young generation still that everybody like remembers. It's pretty much in everybody's memory still. Like
Mhm.
15 years from now though, you might have people that are, like the guy from Fortnite thing, but it's gonna be like people are gonna be watching
Legit.
Die Hard, and it's gonna be like he's got the Lockman sub, like, and I mean I could totally see that happening because I remember in my astronomy class, I think I told you the story before,
Probably.
but I was in my astronomy class in 10th, 11th grade. I think it was I might have been a senior. I don't remember. It was after 2012, that's for sure, because the guy had asked us. I don't even remember what the question was, but he had asked, what kind of. I couldn't even tell you what it was, but he asked us a question, a real astronomy question about
Okay.
something, and I I'm led to believe that it was equipment related. Like, what kind of equipment is able to do this? And it was related to astronomy. And some kid raised his hand and he said, orbital VSAT. Nobody had any idea what he was talking about. I knew because I played Black Ops 2 and I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, brother. Like, what are you doing? And the teacher, we had him. The teacher.
I had him too.
teacher.
Yep.
He was just like, no. Like, he had no idea what that was. But that was one of the earliest examples of like a brain rot kind of, the guy from Fortnite. Is it an orbital VSAT? Is that what took us to the moon or whatever? But that's kind of just a sidetrack thing.
It's just that spamming of words and knowledge into the brain. It's a form of brain rot. All
Yeah.
seeing everything, hearing the voice lines of stuff getting called in Call of Duty. It's just plugging everything in.
To be fair, the VSATs in Black Ops 2. Black Ops 1 had the SR-71 Blackbird. He has the eight kill score streak. So, Call of Duty used to be real accurate with, well, not real accurate, but it had some stuff right. So, I could see that maybe he thought, oh, since they had all this other stuff that was right, maybe the orbital VSAT's a real thing too. But it was still a funny mistake to make.
He missed. It was an unfortunate miss.
Yeah, I'm sure that keeps him up at night to this day. They asked him like, what kind of ship did Neil Armstrong fly? And he was like, the orbital VSAT.
There had to have been people in that class too who also played it and knew
sure.
like, what is this guy talking about?
He got like picked too. It was so funny. He just pointed to him. He was like, and that's called, and the kid was like, orbital VSAT. But I digress. Yeah, I think it's a good thing that. No, go ahead.
No, I would say, do you think that the way that the gun representation in like Call of Duty or in these simulator games is a good thing right now? Do you think that it can progress to become more brain rot like? Do you think it can progress to be even more accurate? Like, where do you see it going, and where do you want it to go?
I think honestly, like I said, those like my kids, maybe they'll grow up and be like, well, they're not with me, but like my kids' generation might think, wow, the Lockman sub, like I said before. But I also think that with these fake names, people want to like find out the truth about what it really is because they want that knowledge. They want to be able to hold it over somebody else and be like, oh, did you know that this is actually called that? And I feel like there's a big push and a call for real stuff, real games, real products, optics, lights, all that kind of stuff. We're at a point now where people are wanting the most realistic stuff for their games. So I don't even remember your original question, but I think that the demand for that stuff is really high right now.
I agree. I think because of that kind of wave that 2019 started, that kind of more immersive aspects in a more arcadey game are becoming a lot more popular.
Yeah. I saw on Reddit the other day, on the Hell It Loose Reddit, somebody had asked, not a gun person, but they had asked, like, hey, those of you that are gun guys or that have these guns in real life, are they accurate like that in real life the way they are to the game? Like, how true is the game? And then a bunch of people were jumping in talking about, oh, I own a Garand, or I have a 1911, or I've shot the MP40 or whatever. So there's definitely still a interest and still definitely part of the pipeline, I think, which is cool. Of course.
People love accuracy. They're drawn to it.
Yep.
The monkey brains want to say, oh, is this gonna actually like real? Like, oh, is this actually what it does?
People want to see effort put in a game, and knowing the real history of the guns in Hell Let Loose, if you don't know, and you've come to find out that they actually are accurate and they are true to real life, that makes you like that game more because it shows effort was put in and it shows
Yes.
care on part of the developers, and people really like to see authenticity in the stuff. In a world full of slop, people try to find those little nuggets of authenticity, and I think that having real gun, being faithful to real gun models and how they work, will actually benefit companies and benefit developers because people will love your game. They'll think it's authentic.
I would really like to see that kind of trend continue, but not to a point of overlapping into simulator games too much.
Yeah,
Because that gunsmith system that Call of Duty has it's really really cool. It's just nice. It's cool to see, but it's also where how much further can they take that? Are you gonna be like selecting a specific bolt carrier group? Like how deep are they gonna go?
yeah, that's true.
So
I mean, they could totally do that. Uh, I'm really excited about now. The last few years of Call of Duty have been bad, but I'm actually really excited about Black Ops 6 this year, just
me too.
because I have a lot of concerns about skill based matchmaking. That's going to be slop, and Snoop Dogg will be in there day one, I'm sure. But I am. They have. We watched the reveal together, and they bought all the gear. They scanned a bunch of early 90s equipment. They had a
I love
723,
that.
a real 720. Well, I don't know. It might have been like an H&R clone or something, but they had a 723 rifle that they had in the studio there, and they were scanning it. We've already seen like the AR-18. That's a gun that has never been in a Call of Duty before. We have a 723 now, and it looks pretty accurate as well. It doesn't look very, how do I say, modified from its original state. They modify a lot of these guns so they don't even look like, for example, the MP5 again in the modern games. They cut the front sight. There's a few other things that don't look like a real MP5, but the 723 has looked really accurate, and it looks like they're putting in that effort, and gun people and non-gun people can appreciate that effort, I think. So I'm really excited about Black Ops 6, and hopefully it delivers on that. What do you think from what you've
I think
seen?
I think that the massive community around guns that has been built over the past few years that's been different from when Call of Duty first started is now making it to where it's no longer the game draws people to the gun. It's now that the gun is kind of drawing people to the game, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. Like
yeah,
for
that's a good way.
instance, you are excited to play it because there's a 723 in it now.
Yeah,
You were never excited before in a new Call of Duty coming out. I was like, oh, that gun's in it. Oh, that's gonna be so cool. Now it's, oh wait, the 723 that I like in real life is gonna be in this game. Oh, sick! I'm gonna be able to deck it out like I would in real life.
yeah,
Cool. You know what I
that's
mean?
true.
There's a flip that's happened now, and I think despite the skill-based matchmaking, it's gonna be inevitable. I know that I think it was a developer or somebody said to someone in an interview that, yo, yeah, the cosmetics going to be crazy, but not at day one. At day
Hmm.
one, we're going to be accurate, but later on, we're going to be King Kong and Godzilla, whatever. So I think it'll be fun. It'll be that feeling that the old COD had, where the guns were iconic because it was just fun with their like whole action hero shooter thing. It'll probably be annoying with the diving while shooting, the whole Max Payne thing they got going on.
Yeah,
I think it'll be annoying, but at the same time, it'll be fun. And when
yeah.
it's just fun, you hit that mark that the old games did, where you liked the guns because they were cool and it was fun.
And that's a good point that you say. it makes me think of Battlefield 2042, where they actually have a lot of good. They've added a lot of guns to that game, from Portal and real guns,
Yeah.
modern, futuristic, whatever kind of inspired guns, and they've added a lot of good guns. And any gun guy should look at 2042 and be like, I can get a 416. There's an M16 A3. There's the alien gun, that weird Andrew Tate gun. There's a G36. There's several of the experimental army prototype guns.
Yep.
There's all these. I can't even think of all them off the top of my head, but we should be able to look at that and be like, this game is awesome because of all these different guns. However, there's just something about, I think that game kind of is like lacking identity or something. I'm not sure exactly. I can't put my finger on it, but that's an example, I think, of a gun that has a lot of game that has a lot of cool guns, but that's not really drawing people to it because the gameplay isn't there. So you got to have the both of the. It's that relationship of both,
Exactly.
I think X Defiant was kind of a good example of that too. They have a lot of real guns with real gun names in them. It kind of looks like it's inspired by like 2013 gun culture because it's like the vectors in it and
Yeah. Those iconic guns that never actually performed well in real life. It's just they were cool in the game, so
yeah.
everyone loves them. I mean, the Desert Eagle. Has that ever been actually used in
I don't
service?
think
Like,
so.
I don't think everyone's even. No military personnel have ever shot a round of a Desert Eagle. That's not. I'm just making a joke there, but it's the way that they look and the stigma that came around them of these guns are cool looking, it shoots super fast, that just made those guns known. Look at the XM8 in Bad Company 2.
Yeah.
Not a soul would know what that gun is if it wasn't for Bad Company 2. That's what I think, personally.
No, I mean, that is like the game. I think that was the first game the XM8, which is funny because Battlefield back then was doing the experimental gun of that time. They added it to their game, and then of today they're adding the M5 A3 and that bullpup with the weird like oil can looking suppressor on the front of it. The
Oh,
RM something or other, which was
yeah,
like
which was the real
experimental.
name.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Some of their guns are real names, some of them aren't, but they're really really close. So yeah, I mean, uh,
I do believe there's two different lenses people can look at too when looking at like a guns or a game's gun list of all the guns that are coming out. There's the people that can look at it and be like, oh, the MP5's coming back to this game. Oh, that means that there's going to be like this high DPS meta weapon is coming back. Instead of somebody else who would look at it as, oh, cool, I want to see what rendition of this MP5 that they use.
right.
So there's like the gameplay way to look at these gun lists coming out, and then there's the more gun autism way to look at it of, what is the specific model that they're using and is it
Yeah.
accurate and this and that.
No, that's well put. That really resonated with when you said it resonated with me when you had said that. Now I'm looking for the guns in the game and like making my purchase based on that. Like, oh, let's see. I've seen, and I'm not alone in that because I saw people online already saying like, "Oh, I'm in." Like they have the 723, and they're like, "Yeah." They post like several screenshots of it, and they're like, "I'm buying this game now." So they know exactly what they're doing, and hopefully they deliver on it. Because
I can only hope, right? Maybe we'll fall into the COD cycle again. We'll hate it, go back to Modern Warfare 3, hate that even more, and just keep going until we go back to Black Ops 1.
that's kind of the inevitability. Before we wrap up, one thing I wanted to say is I think if if Black Ops 1 came out today, and obviously, like, technicalities aside as far as graphics go, accuracy of the weapons the gun community would totally rip it apart because look at what the Commando is. It's got 25 round mags, but it holds 30. It's got 30 round mags, but it holds 45 or whatever. Totally ripped apart because that stuff wasn't accurate. But the thing is that during that time, we weren't all like autistic about it. We weren't gun nerds about it. We were just playing the game. And then now we grew and now we're like, oh, now we know the real stuff, but we still think of those games with fond memories. If you try to do that today, though, it's just people are just not gonna like it. It's gonna be like Vanguard or something where it just gets ripped apart from everybody.
It's the same kind of way with movies, how the old school action hero movies were super over the top with their guns, and now you got John Wick that's super specific with its
Yeah.
guns and how it's handled. They both kind of have that same progression of make the gun look cool and flashy, and that's it. Into more, okay, let's make it a little more accurate and more with the times, I guess you could say.
As the people grow, like the content that our demands grow, and people start to like improve, you know, for the consumer, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, in a way.
So, well, I think that's a pretty good first episode. What do you think?
I agree. I think we talked a lot about just games that we loved and just what we see, what the simple man playing his games and buying his guns sees.
We'll have to go, because we just talked about like some of the big ones like Call of Duty Battlefield, but I'd love to do an episode just talking about those niche games, even the Plastic Army Men games, Black Hawk Down, the Conflict series, Old Ghost Recon, SOCOM. I'd love to talk about all those. You know, we can get in the weeds on that, you know, maybe in a future episode here soon. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, thank you for listening to us yap for an undisclosed amount of time. And hey, do you have any closing words you would like to give the people, Mitch?
Just buy Black Ops 6. It's gonna be great.
I don't know about all that, right? I mean, I'm excited about it, but don't pre-order though. Yeah, don't pre-order. That's
never pre-order.
Never pre-order. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to plug myself real quick and go check out my channel, Agent Espo, on YouTube. And doing some pretty fun stuff here soon with some video game guns IRL. Should be a good time. And then I've got a Patreon and a website link down below you can go check out if you want to buy some merchandise. You can feel free to do that. So he's actually wearing one of the shirts as well as I am as well.
Gotta represent.
I wasn't even trying to wear this. It just happened that way. I just love to wear my own merchandise all the time. So well, that's pretty much all we got, guys. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.